Welcome back to another episode of Rational Discourse Weekly. This is episode 36, filmed on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014. I'm William Garrison.
And I'm Michael Aune.
We talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson. He visited Georgia Tech recently. I got to hear him speak.
Yeah, we talk a little bit about his impact and the general impact of science popularizing on the world.
And then we briefly talk about Christian movies that are making headlines currently and why we think that that's stupid.
Basically, yeah, that about sums it up. It's a good thing for a summary to sum things up. So
summarize.
Indeed. So stay tuned. So are we starting now?
We are starting.
We're back.
We're back?
Again, we were sort of like supposed to be back. And then we did one episode, and then we were gone for 3 more weeks, or 2 more weeks.
We'll be on it. I'm back. I only have one job again. I had a second part-time job there for a while as I was getting used to my new job, but having one job again will help me focus on the things I'd like to do with my free time, which includes podcasting, skateboarding, playing Magic the Gathering, and video games, drinking beer, hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
Living life, basically.
All of those are good things.
So yeah, that includes filming like we are now.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I want to mention that a couple weeks ago I got to see Neil deGrasse Tyson speak at Georgia Tech.
And this son of a bitch didn't tell me after tickets were sold out.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only reason I found out was a coworker sent an email out to my team, said, "Hey, these tickets are up for sale. You better get them quick." I bought my 2 tickets because I could buy one and one for a guest. My girlfriend and I, and then I refreshed the page. Like after I bought tickets, 14 were left. I refreshed the page, 2 were left. I refreshed the page, sold out. So about 5 minutes after I bought mine, they were completely sold out. I think it's when everyone started to get when the word actually started to get out, they went quickly. So I was lucky, and it was pretty awesome to be able to get him see him speak. Obviously, if you're not aware, he's been doing a show called Cosmos, which is kind of a reboot of the old Carl Sagan series, which was amazing.
Yeah. This one is proving to be equally awesome.
This one's amazing, and it's doing a good job of getting people interested in science and our history. So it's funny, even though most people consider history a different subject, science kind of plays into every subject there is, and that includes the history of our universe. So
yeah. Well, science it's a methodology, right?
So it's been interesting. So he talked about Cosmos. He talked about what he's been doing. He's been talking about kind of the fight that he's fighting, and that's to make America, the United States of America, a great country again, because he doesn't think that it's where we should be, which I agree with. That we don't necessarily care as much about science and technology as we should.
I think our emphasis has been misplaced on a number of topics, and obviously I wasn't around during like the 50s or 60s, but like it just seems like the glory days of of nitty gritty, like getting down and dirty with science and engineering and all this cool stuff, and it seems like now it's just not there, that emphasis on greatness.
The closest thing I would
building great things and achieving great scientific breakthroughs or achievements.
The closest thing that we have, and to show that I don't completely knock our country or think that we're doing everything wrong.
No, we're pretty good.
What Silicon Valley and a lot of these large companies that are in the U.S.
Silicon Valley or Silicon?
Both.
Because they're very different and yet both equally awesome.
Silicon Valley, Google, Apple, some of the major companies, and further north, Microsoft. There are some great American companies that are doing pretty good things all around the world. It's just maybe not. It's not what the entire country is focused on.
Yeah.
He
talked about too. It sort of highlights, I think, some of the downside, which is the idea of now, like, if you can't profit from it, is it worth doing? And so, take a company like Apple, which makes fantastic products, But they make it for a reason, and that's to sell a product to the consumer that the consumer wants and will find pleasurable. And it's like, that's great, and the achievements that they've done are great. But I sort of want that raw drive to like, I'm going to do this thing because no one else has done it, and it could be awesome. That's why I think NASA is awesome, right? Because NASA's not trying to make money. They just they're like, we're going to go to this comet, and we're going to hit it with a thing, and we're going to see what happens after we hit it with the thing, and we're going to know something. We're going to spend $2 billion doing this. No profit. That spacecraft will like just burn up in the atmosphere. We might collect some samples.
They know it's entirely in the effort to further science.
Yes.
That's the profit.
Yes. Yeah, the profit is not money. I should say there is a huge profit, right? Because there's the knowledge, and the knowledge can be incredibly useful and important. But, the fact, I think, in a way that our greatest achievements, and you look at technology and stuff like that of late, have been very consumer-driven, sort of shows, I think, the emphasis. We're not breaking the sound barrier anymore. We're not putting a man on the moon. We're getting the next version of Android or the next the iPhone 6. And I love it. I'm glad I have it. It's awesome. And yet, it feels a little hollow. I'm not learning anything from this. The world is not markedly better, in a sense.
It's not really getting me closer to living on Mars.
Yeah, man. Mars. Where is my hover skateboard? My hoverboard. I want it. I want it right now. Punching lights, I'm so mad. In any case.
So, basically, that's what he was talking about. So it was interesting. And even though atheism isn't a topic that he explicitly talks about very often.
He actually avoids it seems, actively.
There were a lot of similar topics when he talked about how to address the general public, the anti-science crowd, if you will.
Who he obviously disdains, right? He's obviously not happy with them. In any of the things I've seen him on, Cosmos, Pre-Cosmos, interviews, Daily Show, whatever, you can see him bite his tongue, because his initial reaction is, you idiots. I can feel it in his brain. And yet, as a true marketer of his ideas and his ideals, he does not follow through on that urge. And he very calmly tries to...
He doesn't let his emotions get the best of him. He sees the bigger picture, which is that he needs to win people over with the facts, to be like, here's why science is exciting, here's why you should love it, and here's why it's true.
And that...
Not necessarily in that order, because he just kind of chooses. He's magical like that.
He's not... He is a popularizer of science, right? Carl Sagan was one of the first great ones. He may have been the first great one. And then you had characters like Bill Nye, Stephen Hawking in a way.
Who was that older guy? Mr. Wizard.
And now Neil deGrasse Tyson. And these are men who come out of the woodwork and say, we're doing all this great stuff, and you should know about this, and you should be excited about it too, and it shouldn't just be something that's cloistered away. We want to bring you all to it, because it's to the benefit of us all to know these things, to pursue these things, and to value these things. And I think that's fantastic. And to your point, the way he does that is very important. But because he could come out and say, you people are idiots, and you're dumb, and you're wrong, he doesn't do that. What he does, though, is he sets a limit on what is to be acceptable. So he will admit that there are opposing viewpoints. He will not denigrate or bash the people who hold those viewpoints. And he will basically sort of do a little roundabout maneuver, a little flanking maneuver, and say, I'm not going to confront you directly. What I'm going to do is sort of just brush you aside. It's the same reason there's no creationism episode on Cosmos, nor will there be, much to the chagrin of many people, apparently. There was a great thing in, I think it was Kansas, where lawmakers were going to put forth a bill that would basically punish news studios if they broadcast Cosmos because of its anti-religious or anti-Christian methods, and the fact that it was not giving creationism any airtime. I don't think it's gone anywhere, and I would love to see him try. But in any case, he doesn't do that. He flanks, right? He comes around and he says, this is what we know.
Here's how the universe started.
And here's how we know this thing. And here's why these facts reinforce one another.
Right.
So it's the idea of not trying to break down your opponent, but simply build up your position to be so strong or so reasonable or so obvious that it becomes just hard to even stomach the other one. But in many ways, I think that is the way that if we are going to overcome religion and religious ideology, that's going to be the way we do it, is to subvert, but to subvert to patience and truth and a steadfastness as we educate, I hope, educate ourselves about the way the world is. So I really, truly value what he's doing and think it's one of the best things to come out in a long, long time.
And I think and maybe I'm an optimist, but I feel like this is a part of a bigger movement because we're an internet-connected world and because people are sharing links and
yep.
A lot of people are watching Cosmos. That I think that we're on an upswing.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
But you got to think too, though. How many religious movies are in theaters? Yeah. Either right now or I think all the major three. There was Son of God, which was the Jesus story for the umpteenth time, and apparently a bland telling of it. There's Heaven is for Real, Son of God. No, sorry, no, God's Not Dead. That's what I mean.
Son of God is an older one, but
yeah, Son of God was actually
older.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
God's Not Dead.
I don't know things.
Heaven is for Real.
Noah,
and then Noah, which we talked about before the show. Noah's like a kind of an incidental one because the director, basically, he wasn't pitching it as a Christian movie. He's an independent director who's not heavily religious. He was literally using it as hey, this is a great story that I know I can tell and show on the big screen.
I mean, it's
mythology.
Epic,
mythology is the term that he used on an interview, and so
was it The Daily Show?
The Daily Show, the Colbert Report. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I can't remember which, but the fact that it cropped up in the middle of these other movies, I think Christians might see that as a victory for them to be like, well, we've infiltrated Hollywood. These movies may or may not have sold well. I don't know.
Well, the other ones were smaller productions. This was by a well-known director, and this was with a $130 million budget. I mean, this was a true blockbuster. What's interesting, though, is how it's gotten panned by some religious people for not being true enough in their eyes to the story. Because as far as I know, it only mentions God in an indirect way. I think he's called the Creator by the Son at one point, but like Noah doesn't talk to God. He has visions or dreams, like a lucid dream states or something like that. It's not about the religious thing. It's been characterized in many reviews as more of like almost like a warning, like a nature versus man thing, like the dangers of like man taking advantage of nature,
like Ferngully.
Yeah, except with like less of a smog monster and more of like everyone dies. Yeah.
Things die.
So I think it's interesting the fact that this is a movie that is the most directly rooted. Well, I guess it's the second. Son of God was actually the story of Jesus. But this was the second closest. This was actually rooted in a specific story, at least at its core. That's what it drew on. And people were mad in many ways. Like, it didn't get the Passion of the Christ following, I think, because it was seen as not paying enough homage to the source material. To be fair, there's not enough to do an hour-and-a-half movie, it sounds like, from the source material. Not an interesting one, anyway. There's a little light on dialogue in the Bible until the until the New Testament. So you'd have to do a lot of just people sitting there building a boat, leading animals on. Stop eating that one. Stop. Well, we lost the dinosaurs. But in any case, the other two are...
Well, the one I wanted to ask you about is God's Not Dead, and the reason...
Stupid.
Basically, Kevin Sorbo is the...
Hercules.
Hercules is the atheist professor. He's a philosophy professor. He's not a professor of atheism, but he's an atheist professor of philosophy at this college that this Christian kid goes to.
Real quick, full disclosure, we have not seen it, nor do we have any intention to, because everything I've read is that it's mind-numbing.
I'll probably
it's been panned by like fundamentalist Christians.
I'll probably stream it online or something, but
we'll have a viewing party one day. Oh my god, we could do like
I'm not going to go to great lengths to
Mystery
watch
Science Theater 3000 like version where we film ourselves watching it and just dying on the inside a little bit.
That'd be amazing. So we'll see what happens, but basically the Christian student goes to this college, wants to get a degree in philosophy for some reason. Has the professor...
Which, real quick, as someone who was in the philosophy program, I can tell you that, man, when you hit like the graduate level, we had one, and I mean one, as far as I know, in the entire program, who was a theist, who actually believed in a god of any kind. It's just not... Those two don't go together, in my experience at all, because otherwise you're in theology, and you shift branches.
Right, like if you care enough about it to sort of pursue it.
Yeah.
But the atheist professor on the first day of class says to the entire class, he wants people to write this down, I think. I'll have to look at the trailer, but it's the phrase is "God is dead," and it's a Nietzsche quote. Nietzsche quote that was kind of taken. Well, at least in the trailer, they didn't apply context. He was literally just saying, "I'm saying God is dead," and the student refused, and he wanted to debate the professor, and he was going to prove to the class that God is real and that God isn't dead. And then obviously, because it's a Christian film...
it was like if he succeeded, then he passed, otherwise he failed. Like he bet his education on it.
Right. And because it's a Christian movie, we all know how it ends, which is he teaches the atheist professor wrong, the atheist professor goes to church, and then they all live happily ever after.
Actually, no, apparently it's worse than that. Apparently, everyone who's not like a convert...
Spoiler alert. If this is the real ending, spoiler alert.
You really need this. Apparently, everyone gets their ass kicked. It's like very retributive. Where, like, I think there's a Muslim girl who actually she converts, and like her father, like bad shit happens to him, and then Kevin Sorbo, like his wife leaves him, and like apparently everyone who's not like a good Christian, like their life falls apart in one way or another at the end of the movie.
Obviously at the will of God.
Yeah, and it's like total pandering apparently. And I read a bunch of reviews, and a lot of them from Christians who were like, man, we just like, stop it. This is not a good movie. We don't come off looking well. You haven't convinced anyone. You're just pandering to an already convinced fundamentalist crowd about a limited interpretation of what it is to be a Christian. And it's bullshit. You need to stop.
So we bring it up because it's interesting that these movies have been seeing light recently,
back to back.
because it could be seen in the eyes of some Christians as a victory somehow.
I think the fact that
they keep trying to win over Hollywood because they think Hollywood, because it's secular, they're kind of fed up that
it's a secular, liberal, sexy den of thieves.
That they're fed off into their own means to shows like Touched by an Angel and Christian rock stations. And
I think the problem is that it's inherently divisive, and so people who don't already share your belief don't care.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fundamental issue is, like, your audience is set now, to be fair. There's a huge number of Christians, so if you can do it, but, it's no Avengers. So I'm going to go watch Avengers.
And I think most Christians feel that way. I was a Christian once, and as just a normal Christian who didn't care a lot about my religion, I just was a Christian.
Yeah.
I wasn't going out of my way. I hated Christian music because I'm like, this is worse than normal music, and you shove Jesus and God into everything. I'm like, I listen to that at church. Like, isn't that what church is for? if you're listening and you happen to like that stuff, I'm sorry. It's not for me, and I don't think it's for the general public because these things historically don't do well. No. When you go to a music,
there's a reason a lot of artists will start on Christian labels, and then once they achieve any sort of success, they immediately leave the Christian label, and their music becomes mainstream. And it's because it's seen as a step. It's a small, easier, more easily accessed market, yeah. And then from there you can try and springboard into mainstream success. It's just not interesting. There's I think Hank Hill at one point from King of the Hill. He says, "You're not making rock music better. You're not making a Christian rock better. You're making normal rock worse." It's something like that.
Here, I found it.
Let's see.
Hey, what's up? You still have another set? I'm taking my son home.
I can't believe you, Dad. You're embarrassing me in front of the pastor.
Mr. Hill, you just don't get it. This is how we testify.
Raise him!
Can't you see you're not making Christianity better? You're just making rock and roll worse.
So, the wisdom of Hank Hill there.
Amen to that.
But that's all we really had for this week. We just wanted to catch up on some of the things that have been going on in the world and how it relates to atheism. So we'll be back again, hopefully next week.
Yeah. We should be back to a fairly regular schedule now that your evenings will not be so consistently occupado.
Yep.
So, thanks for hanging in there with us. And if you're new, welcome. There's a lot of other stuff. You can't see it. It's all behind this wall. It's all of our backlog of material. But there are links. If you subscribe to our channel, there's other stuff. There's like 35 other podcasts. It's insane. And there's a website that you can go to, which has articles. There's like 30 or 40 of those. So, dive in. We'll be back by the time you're done. And you can get caught up. So, we'll see you hopefully again next week.
And remember, God is dead.
Is he? I didn't think he was ever alive.
I don't know.
Is a rock,
kind of not
is
the
a
same
rock
thing.
Dead? Wasn't ever. Anyway, we'll debate that. We'll get back to you next week. Okay, bye. Here's the problem. This little kid has a near-death experience. Goes to heaven. Book, movie deal, buku money. We have a near-death experience. Nothing happens. No book deal. No money. Like, maybe we should...
The struggle's real.
The struggle is real.